we are live.
Live.
Yes. Welcome to Force of Light Entertainment. I am Michelle with 2 L's.
And I'm Natalie the Red.
Listen, I should have brought it. I want to tell you why I'm Michelle with 2 L's, everyone. Tonight, I had another good instance of I went to Chick-fil-A and she spelled my name with 1 L. So when they brought my food out to me, what did they say? They didn't say Michelle. They said Michael, which is why I always specify my name is Michelle with 2 L's. So
Exact, Michelle.
yes, that's why. Well, let's see. We've got an awesome guest tonight, but I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. We see you, and as ABJ says, we salute you. So let's see, Brett, Mr. Buttcrack Media, our boy David, Cher, Sam. Let's see. Keep going. You guys are talking to each other, so it's throwing me off. There we go. And everyone, Yeti, our friend Yeti, who just got monetized.
Woo-hoo!
So excited for him. It's always fun. And Derek, I want to say that your video really touched me. It was really sweet. And
me too.
I really appreciated it, genuinely.
That was so sweet.
It was. So thank you so much. And to Lord Vader himself, and to Rick. Well, tonight we have a very special guest. You guys, I'm sure, know him from Friday Night Tights, but we are bringing out the one and the only Odin. Odin, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are y'all doing?
Doing pretty good.
Good.
I know you said you've got baby Thor. He's taken care of for the next little bit.
Yes. He has been bathed and now he is being fed. Hopefully he is eating said meal. He's been kind of a little fussy recently with his last feeding, and sometimes it's hard to get a few ounces into him, but he's at the age now where he's got to learn if you don't eat, you're going to get a little hungry in the middle of the night. But he has been sleeping through the night since he was a month old. He's been sleeping.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So he really may be baby Thor. Like he genuinely may have superpowers.
Oh yes, and we always say no. We always try and make it clear with each other. Hey, the next one's not going to be like this. Like this is as good as it gets, and it's not going to get any better from here.
I mean, you may just want to stop with baby Thor because everything else is a disappointment from here on out. That next kid would have some big shoes to live up to.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's like, well, your brother didn't do that. Why are you doing it?
I think, Natalie, you just said, how long was it till you slept through the night with your daughter?
At least about 8 months.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because he was just unique from the get-go. You know, when he was born, he was already lifting up his head.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so having to obviously, you cradle the newborn and everything, but we didn't really feel like we needed it as much because he was already lifting his head up the shoulder as we were holding him as a newborn. So we were already kind of like, okay, this is going to be a little different. And then at one point we were both working. Once her maternity leave was over, we were both working full time, and so we needed to get a nanny to help out, just because I was away and she was at home, but couldn't take care of it all. And she really helped, with his developmental skills, to the point where we'd go to the doctor, and the doctor would be like, "You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be able to do that yet." So he was always a little bit special in that capacity, but.
I mean, is he Thor, or does he need to go to Xavier School of X-Men? I mean, I don't know. He
Once we get to the terrible twos, I think we'll have a better idea. So we'll see how he is at 2.
I mean, at 2, he may be a 5-year-old. I mean,
this is true. This is very true.
He's advancing quickly. But that's a blessing, regardless.
Yes, absolutely. We are there. We are very thankful for that, for sure.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Buttcrack Media, for the 149 super sticker. We appreciate that.
And on the subject of sleep, I'll just add that I very unwisely, as a grown person,
what did you do?
I stayed up till 3 last night. I never do that. I stayed up till 3, and then I naturally woke up at 7 a.m.
I couldn't.
Could you just not sleep?
I just had a burst of energy. I ended up watching a movie, doing some laundry.
What movie did you watch?
Girl Interrupted.
Oh, because we brought up James Mangold.
And then
was that a James Mangold movie?
That's what I was listening to, Toxic Femininity, and they brought that up. I didn't realize that was James Mangold, but apparently it's one of his first big movies.
Huh. Because I knew already about films like Logan and Ford v Ferrari, and I know he had done really good films, but that's one film I haven't seen, but I've always heard good things about.
I haven't seen it either, but she's seen it twice, I guess. So, did you still like it as an adult?
It didn't have quite the same appeal to me as my teenage self. Honestly,
I don't know if that's a good thing, guys. I mean, it's good. It's good for you now. But...
It's good for my development. But no, but it's still a cool movie. I didn't realize because I rented it off of YouTube. So then I'm guilty of, even on watching a movie on YouTube, I'll be looking at the comments. I'm like, what's everybody think about this movie?
There's comments of a movie on YouTube?
Yeah, it's like you can just turn it that way, and people that have rented the movie will leave their comments throughout, I guess.
That's kind of fun.
I mean, just make sure you don't check those out if you're watching a new movie, because there's probably spoilers everywhere.
Exactly.
They're like, I hate when so-and-so dies. You're like, I'm 2 minutes in. but I didn't realize it was actually a book, like written by.
Well, yeah. Most good movies. I don't know if it's good, but most good movies I feel like are books.
Well, kind of like a true story book, like a nonfiction. One of the women, or the main character, she actually did stay 18 months in a mental institution, or whatever they called it in the late 60s. Probably a mental institution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the movie set in the 60s?
It is.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but it's a cool movie.
Nice. Does it actually stick to the 60s like genre? Like that? Like, is it one of those movies that's set in the 60s and it's like, oh, it's set in the 60s, or is it like we can just do whatever we want, no one's going to notice that this was technically from the 70s?
I think it was pretty in the 60s. I think they did a pretty good job.
Okay.
Have you seen it, or you haven't seen it?
I had not seen that one yet, but I've seen a couple of the other films that Mangold has done.
Yeah, it was some of the girls.
And it's not because I was trying to support Mangold.
Well, I brought it up to you.
I didn't realize he had done that movie, and then I just was like, I haven't seen that since I was a teenager. Like, I want to watch that as an adult.
Yes, I brought it up to her because, again, the girls on Toxic Femininity brought it up and were like, oh, it's a good movie, you should watch it. And I mentioned that you liked it and whatever. So
yeah. Well, because he's also done things like he did Copland, which it's not necessarily the best movie, but it's pretty fun. And then he also, I didn't know that he did this one. He did the film Identity. Have y'all ever seen that one with John Cusack?
No.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's fun.
Okay.
It's about a guy with multi-personality disorder, and that's all I'll say about it.
I already like it.
Yeah,
that's right up Natalie's alley.
That's my kind of thing. I love mental stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, he actually did one of my modern Western remake favorites. He did 3:10 to Yuma in 2007, and I loved it. So good.
Oh my gosh, David! Yes. Thank you so much for the $49.99 super chat. Hell to everyone in the chat. I missed. Hell Odin, and most importantly, hell to the lovely ladies from Forcible Entertainment. David, we love you.
Oops, he did it again.
He did.
But we love you for it. Thank you so much.
And may the Lord bless you.
And may the force be with you.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, David. And David, I'm actually my niece is working on the little clips, because we've got your David.
We do. It's on the way.
We're working on. So she was making us clips. So we're gonna have that coming, David. Well, anyways, I guess we can kind of move into, because I know we covered the James Mangold madness or meltdown, whatever you want to say. And I think in our video, we actually had where you had retweeted something and kind of addressed his craziness. But what were you thinking when you were reading that? It was like, good Lord.
I was just, I was upset because unlike in other situations where other Hollywood elites or verified checkmark people come in on things, I knew more about him. This is the experience we've had before, where especially Star Wars writers and producers have come in, and people like Pablo Hidalgo and others like that back in the day when Chuck Wendig was still working for Disney as well, he would be that kind of person that would go in, but I had never read his books, and so I didn't really know much about him. So when I saw James Mangold, I was like, I actually know of this guy, I know of his work, and I like his work, and just to see him present himself in this way was just so upsetting, and especially since it was so unwarranted, because you go to the original tweet by Matthew Kadish, and he at no point calls out James Mangold. He at no point tags James Mangold. He just has the hashtag Indiana Jones 5, and he's just laying out an opinion of, hey, if you're someone who thinks that this film's going to be really good, here are some things you might want to consider. Basically, he's just presenting an opinion of which many people, millions of people do on a daily basis on that platform. But apparently James Mangold was like, I'm going to go after this person.
Well, and it's just like, I understand if you're someone and like you get just sheer hate after hate addressing it. Because I even said in the video we made, like the Freddie Prinze Jr. situation that went down a few weeks ago or a month ago, the original tweet was very rude to tag him in. And I get that. And he still should have probably handled it a little better. But in this case, there wasn't anything addressing James Mangold personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just but then he made it very personal, and and that's where it bothered me, was his attacks were very personal, and it was just kind of like, dude, like you need to, someone in your position needs to be able to rise above someone who's didn't even criticize you.
As the way the kids would put it today, he needs to check his privilege.
No, absolutely he does, and it's one of those, It's really, honestly, it boggles my mind, because you would think that at this point, especially with Disney, they would realize how many people they have lost because of these interactions that have happened on social media with various peoples, and the impact that can have on their bottom line. Because, whether people want to admit it or not, you look to the first Star Wars movie in the sequel trilogy, over $2 billion. By the end of that run, it was down to $1 billion. So you had lost around half your audience. Now, there's a lot of reasons why. It's not just because of fandom menace or social media interactions or stuff like that, but it definitely added to it. And it's just amazing to me that someone like James Mangold, who's been around for a long time, who obviously is underneath the Disney wing, would not be in a better position to say, hey, I appreciate your criticism. Let me correct you on a couple of points, but hey, I hope that I can make a good film. And he kind of tried to, I think, towards the end. Like, because that was the other thing. He spent the entire day on Sunday, entire day responding, and it went even into Monday. And it wasn't until the very end of the entire run on Monday that he finally was like, "Oh, just give it a chance." And he changed his tune a little bit. It was weird.
Yeah, it really is, and that's why I was telling Natalie, I think soon we're gonna, like, I've got to really flesh out our thoughts and kind of think what I want to do. But I really at some point want to make a video about just kind of Lucasfilm's PR problem and their fan problem, because there really is, whether it's Chuck Wendig or Rian Johnson, Pablo Hidalgo, now it's like there is literally a track record of the way Lucasfilm has come at fans. And it's just, that's really bad business. And it's pretty mind-boggling to me that that's the way they approach their fans. Yeah. It's just, it's bizarre.
Yeah. And also kind of gatekeeping him too by saying, what do you mean by fans? And asking for like a definition of fans. And you're like, are fans ones that crap over things? And I'm like, you've obviously never been to a movie before with your friends and then waited outside in a parking lot after the movie's over to have long conversations and debates about whether or not the movie was good or bad. And then even if the film was bad, still saying how much you love the franchise. Like, it's just like, it drives me insane when especially these Hollywood elites, and I always go back to something that you see from people like, I'm blanking out on his name, but Ricky Gervais. Ricky Gervais, I think, has always had the best take on all of this, where it's like, you in Hollywood have no idea. It comes from like one of the last speeches he did when he hosted the Golden Globes. You have no idea what it's like in the real world. You live in these bubbles where you think you know, but you honestly have no idea. So come up here, accept your award, and just shut up and don't say anything. And I feel like that's what it has to be with these social media too, because even people that we love, like Mark Hamill. I mean, if you actually look to his Twitter feed, he's awful. I mean, he just goes off on random political things, and we still love him as, we're still fans of Luke Skywalker, so that hasn't changed. And it's just weird that James Mangold wouldn't be able to understand you can be critical and still be a fan.
Well, and it's just like, people are like, well, how can you crap on something before it came out? But it's like there's a track record. There's things there that people can kind of critique of. I don't know if this is going to be good. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And to be fair, 3 out of the 4 bullet points
we're accurate.
We're facts.
And the 4th one was actually partially correct because Jonathan Kasdan was connected to the film up until March of 2020, when, not in an official tweet, but in a reply to someone, he said, "Oh, my work on the film is done." Which seems to indicate that he did work on the movie, that something in the script is going to have been written by him, and that he's just no longer currently actively writing any of the script. And so you could even technically say that that last point is not completely incorrect, because I think even IMDb at one point was listing him as a writer. And so are we going to say IMDb now is fake news and is trash media siting? I mean, let's just... James, come on, man. Like...
Well, it is, and that's what something, and I tweet this out, and I want to put this in that video whenever we cover it, is the word fan literally comes from the word fanatic, like an intense zeal or devotion towards something, like intense feelings. And even back to, I was talking on Twitter, or actually even in our comments, there were a few people are like, mouthing off as they do in the comments. But if you go to, say, any sporting event, okay, the Philadelphia fans are notorious. In fact, what they're known for, the quote is, throwing snowballs at Santa Claus. I mean, they will tear up their team and not care. But does it mean they hate their team? They're not fans? No. It's because they love their team and they get really angry when they suck.
Yes, that's what fandom is. Fandom is, I will support you in the good times and the bad times, but when the bad times are there... if I'm paying money for these seats, I'm going to yell at you. Like, if I'm paying the money, it's almost like I have the right to have this negative impact on you. But yeah, you made a good point, too. It's like, this is what fandom has always been. Fandom has always been about what is working, what is not working. And you can go to comics, movies, TV shows. There's always been multiple sides of any of these things. And having these conversations and these debates over them is what fandom is all about.
Definitely. Yeah. 100%. Let me get to this. Thank you, Derek, for the $5 super chat. Lucasfilm is shutting down user-generated content platforms rather than listening to them as customer feedback. Exactly. That's a fantastic point. Definitely. They should. And I'm going to get it again. I'm going to get in that video. I shouldn't give away everything that I'm going to say in the video. But let's just say in the video, I'm going to get to ideas that even I had of ways they can begin to reach out and try to mend things. Because don't view Friday Night Tights or shows like that as enemies, but maybe listen to some of the critiques and see the big following they have, and maybe kind of consider some things and take some things in. It would be a wise move there, but definitely, Derek.
Because it's not that, we, as a member of Friday Night Tights, we don't think that everyone in the world listens to us. We see the number of people who listen, who tune in every single week, and so we know what our numbers are looking like. But at the same time, there are countless other people who probably feel the same way. Because if you, again, look to how the sequel trilogy started and where it ended as far as how much money it got. And when you take that into account, you have to understand, okay, where did those people go? Where did that $1 billion worth of revenue go? It didn't just disappear, right? It didn't just float into the air somewhere. It obviously means that people chose not to go see either the second or third movie, right? And the fact that the third movie made less than even the second movie did, that also speaks volumes, because typically you see a higher return on investment on a lot of these things as they progress, if people are really enjoying what they're seeing on screen. But if they could at least listen, because the thing that it really comes down to is Star Wars has been, for the most part, pretty much made for, and again, this is not exclusively true, but it was mostly a male-dominated audience, right? If you were to break down demographics of Star Wars fans, it would be very heavily male. You would also have a very strong female contingent there as well. And then what Disney decided to do was, hey, let's buy this because our products typically go more towards women. So let's get this in and then we'll have both. But then they took the property that is more likely to be liked by men and then decided to try and make it more feminine. And now they're just driving away half of the audience, essentially. And I think it kind of shows when you look at the overall numbers.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's like with Star Wars, it is kind of the way Disney handled it, because it's like no one would have had a problem, I believe. Like, I know in George Lucas's original, the original thing that he's kind of gone back and forth with what he was going to do with the sequel trilogy. But I remember back in the day, his idea was that he would have a female lead that was trained by Luke. And I think her name was going to be Kira Ray, I believe was what I saw on that. But I think in that you still would have gotten Luke. And no one would have had a problem with it had it been this really good female, just like with Ahsoka. Had it been this really strong female character that was trained by Luke, and it just could have been done a little better. Yeah. I think everyone knows that at this point.
Definitely.
Yeah, one small change you could have had that could have made everyone who is a Star Wars fan happy is to have Han, Luke, and Leia on screen one more time. That's what everyone, and it's so funny because now there are people who, now that their access media passes aren't as, they don't need to worry about them as much with the Star Wars films essentially being over for the foreseeable future. Obviously they have announced projects, but we don't really know exactly how far along they are or when they'll be coming out. But what you've seen now are people are now starting to be critical of The Last Jedi, whereas before it was very much protected. You've also seen a lot more criticism of things like The Rise of Skywalker as well. And one thing that a lot of times comes up, if people are being honest in their conversations, is, we never got that moment. And what a moment that would have been had you had those three on screen, and how sad it is that it is now completely impossible because of the death of Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, that was one of those things that just should have happened.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the fact that a script was written where you knew you were going to kill off Han, and you didn't think to get them together before that moment, since you were going to give Harrison Ford what he wanted, it really is pretty baffling.
Yes, it is. And also, too, to not go, as you were saying, go down the route of having Rey receive some type of formal training.
Well, exactly. Well, it would have greatly endeared everyone to the character, to see this character that's so loved in Luke really take to her and really instill things and train her and pass the baton in a sense.
But they didn't even seem to like each other.
No, they really didn't.
It's quite the opposite.
Yeah. They didn't get along very well. But that's totally correct about how you properly pass on the torch. You have to be able to show the strength of the original characters so that when they do in their training go through that process, when they do pass on the baton and the torch, you'll say, oh, it makes sense. Because we've now established this. But instead, they did the opposite. They said, we're going to force everyone on these new characters that no one knows, no one has any connection to. We're going to put the main characters, in our view, right, of the franchise in the background as supporting characters, minimize their roles, kill one of them off in the first film, and expect something to work. But all you're doing is isolating your original core fan base. And I forget what there's an economic principle that states that when you talk about audiences and fans, the most hardcore, 10 to 20%, usually makes up around 80% of profits of any franchise. Because it's the hardcore fans, as small as they are, who spend the most money. And they're going to spend a lot more money than even though there's more people in this other piece of the pie, they're not going to spend as much as the hardcore fans. And by isolating those hardcore fans, they essentially doom the franchise to continue to go downhill.
Yeah,
that
definitely
makes sense. Yeah.
And even back to, I was thinking as you're talking, even with Ahsoka, how did they endear you to her? She's Anakin's Padawan. Mm-hmm. That was that entry point again. And you could have basically taken that same formula and replicate it with Luke and Rey, and it would have lasted a lot longer as far as people really enjoying it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Because now, like, I actually enjoyed, I didn't like The Last Jedi as much as I really enjoyed The Force Awakens, actually, when it came out. Like, it really invigorated my even though I hated the Han scene. I'm pretty sure I passed through the 5 stages of grief with Han.
Makes me cry every time.
I just can't watch it. But, like, now as you look back over the whole of the trilogy, it's just so discombobulated and disjointed. And it's sad that we didn't get a coherent story that I think they could have made all 3 of the new characters so much more endeared and beloved had they handled the original characters better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also the fact that it's been admitted now essentially by several people that they really had no plan. You know, Daisy really coming out saying from the very beginning, oh, I was never meant to be a Palpatine. That was just kind of a thing they threw at me at the last minute. It's like, okay, so the fact that you decided to take this beloved franchise that's been around for decades and decades, has a massive fan base, and go into it without a clear-cut plan of where you're going, that should tell you all you need to know about the people behind the scenes. Because that shows you a group that does not care. They do not care about the source material, as even Kathleen Kennedy herself says. We had no source material to go off on. We had nothing to go off on, which, of course, was a major lie. And so you have people then that just don't care. And then when we recognize that they don't care, well, then why should we care about the product that they're giving us?
Yeah, definitely. Well, and even with that, I know I'm staying on this. It's like when I left The Force Awakens, I was like really convinced that she was Han and Leia's, because I was thinking of Legends, and I thought, well, surely, you know, that seems like a good idea to pull from that, and Kylo be the bad one and she be the good one, and maybe they had to hide her for some reason, and we'll figure that down the road. But that's not what we got.
Not at all. Not at all. Instead, we got the hyperspace ram. We got, Mary Poppins floating in space. I saw someone had mentioned that.
Brutal.
Oh, yeah. And even, I think, the most optimistic of people who went in with just all the expectations and the willingness to forgive, I can't imagine anyone saw that scene and didn't immediately laugh or like facepalm, because those are the only 2 natural reactions that one can have to that. Like, not her waking up in space, but literally the flying motion of her literally looking like, it's just no self-awareness there from Rian Johnson.
That was a really good impression. It was like I could immediately picture her doing it. She did that.
It's essentially what they did.
Do you know what it looks like? It looks like Dr. Evil's spaceship.
Oh, yeah. It's in the shape of Big Boy. Good God, he's back. Well, actually, Big Boy never left, sir. He's always offered. If only Big Boy was in Star Wars, then we would have a movie.
Exactly.
That's right.
But it was bad. And thank you, Rick, for the $20 super chat. The first rule of marketing used to be the customer fan is always right. Exactly. Now, for some meg corporations like Disney, it's the customer must accept and love what we do and give them. That is how the CCP in China works. It's a very solid point.
True.
Very solid point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talked about that on a previous video of just, it was actually dealing with Warner Brothers on that one, but just how you don't treat customers this way. Because there is that saying, the customer is always right. You've got to smooth it over.
Mm-hmm.
And I use the analogy, like, would you call Amazon's customer service? And they're like, no, let me tell you where you're wrong, and F you for your theory. And
I always mention I used to work at an AMC theater for a few years. And it was a tough job because you're working customer service and you have to have that mentality of the customer's always right. And there were only very few times when we could actually like turn that on its head. And typically it was in the case where there was someone who was very unruly or someone who was just being ridiculous. Like, those are the circumstances where you can totally do that. But there were people who would be coming out 20 minutes into their film being like, this is terrible, give me my money back. And it'd be like, okay. Or there'd be people after the film coming over trying to, watch the whole movie and everything. My favorite was always they would come out, they'd have a half-eaten bag of popcorn. They'd be like, this popcorn's stale. I want a new one. And so usually we'd be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. We'll refill it." And then some would be very charitable, saying, "Hey, I got to halfway and now it's all like crumbs," and they would show you like, "Oh yeah, it's all crumbs and kernels." It's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna take care of you with that." But then there were the others who were so complaining. The best probably being the ones who would put the butter. The butter substitute, because there was not really butter. So when you actually realize it's not actually butter, it's just
I don't use it.
butter flavoring instead. But what they would do is they would really soak it, and then they would come out of their theater and they'd be like, my clothes are all ruined now because it leaked through the bag. And it's like, yeah, because you smothered it in this oil, essentially.
But yeah, so just to clarify, there's definitely, anytime you've worked with the public in any capacity, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
You already know. Yes. Like, that the customer is not always, in fact, right.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
I get what you're saying in this thing.
That's how you treat them.
Yes. No, exactly. You don't start off being aggressive at all. I'm one of the best experiences I ever had. I was in the box office, and this woman came up with her 2 kids who were clearly teenagers, and she's like, "Could I have 1 kid and 2 child tickets to this movie?" And I was like, "Oh, you mean 3 adult tickets?" And she's like, "No, 2 children tickets." And I'm like, "Oh, how old are your kids?" And she was like, "Oh, the child ticket age." I'm like, "Oh, what is that?" And then she's like, "Oh, they were 14, 15. I'm like, "Actually, child is 12. But I would be more than happy to ring you up for 3. And then she just didn't process it, freaked out, and then she hit me with I just think it's a race thing. So basically, she called me a racist, and I was just like, "No, it's because your kids are clearly not kids. They're clearly teenagers in high school, and you're not getting the child ticket." So obviously, like, that's an example though where there's a way to approach it though, because I could have been like, "You're lying to me," and like, get out of the line. But like, that's essentially what Lucasfilm and what a lot of these studios are doing is, instead of talking to you and getting the feedback and working things out, they're like, if you come up and you have actually not even that, because you're bringing like good ideas, or at least ideas from the heart, or let's say in this example, they don't have enough money. Right? Let's say that they're just trying to get out of the house, right? They're trying to do something good for their family. And so they have good intentions. And instead of like talking to them and explaining to them things that are going on, instead they say, "Oh, you can't afford it. Get out of the line, plebe." Yeah. That's essentially what they're doing in that situation.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and generally just, you want to try and de-escalate, where you can. Not throw fire on it.
Yeah.
In any of these cases, really.
Not do pictures of the middle finger, Rian Johnson, and stuff like that. You don't want to do that. And thank you, Ron D., for the $5 super chat. Of course, Star Wars needs to progress. All we wanted was the original band cruising around on the Falcon for one last tour, and while introducing the new lineup. Yeah, that is it. Just, I think everyone can agree. Even like I said, I enjoyed it pretty good, especially The Force Awakens. It invigorated my Star Wars love. But when you look back, and it's already aging not as great because of the just discombobulated. But
we did.
What?
We did get roast Tico.
We did get the gift of roast Tico that keeps on giving.
That was worth it, guys. And thank you, Roger H., for the $1.99 super sticker. Appreciate you, Roger. Let's see. Yeah, Justin. And I know Justin feels the same way about me, like I do, that he doesn't hate the sequels as bad as a lot of people do, but they're a big missed opportunity. There isn't any way to deny that.
And for The Force Awakens, when I look back, I had positive experience with that film too. Like, I recognize that there were issues. It wasn't a perfect movie, but for a return, I was like, okay, this is a nice return. It's very much, because for me, my big criticism was like, with A New Hope, it's like all these points and all of these hits from A New Hope are essentially just being redone. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. It is what it is, but at least we have some characters. Maybe we'll get some development. And then, of course, Rian Johnson came along and said, wait, I have to make a second film in a trilogy? No, I'm going to make my own movie, and I'm going to care about what I want to see on screen, which is what you don't do when you're trying to have any cohesive storyline whatsoever. And so imagine if they had that first film, The Force Awakens, as it was, and then what does the first film end with? Luke Skywalker. Imagine instead of him just being like, hey, fans, this is a lightsaber. This is my lightsaber. Whoop, screw you, by throwing it over the... Imagine if instead it turned into a focus on Luke Skywalker, where he's been, why he's been there, and obviously training montage, and then actually have half the film maybe focus on him training Rey. And then from there, they both leave together. That then can lead to the reunion, because you don't kill Han in the first film. Maybe you don't kill Han in the first film. You can then have that reunion, and then slowly you have the new characters take over.
Do you know that my idea is, because we discussed this actually, I think this Christmas, my idea was, okay, so you get to the snow scene where you have Kylo fighting Finn, and of course he takes Finn out pretty easy. Mm-hmm. So then you let him fight with Rey, and he's just kind of playing with Rey for the most part. But let him get her like to the edge. You can let all this play out, and don't let Han die before this either.
Yes.
In fact, my idea was like they were going to let you kind of think he might be dead, but not give you the answer, and then reveal like in the next one that he was still alive. But we can work on that. Where this is just my mind.
No body, no death.
Yeah, no body, no death. But anyways, he wouldn't get stabbed through the heart either in this. But
I left out that detail in my mind.
But I had in my mind, how awesome would it be? You could even in this give Rey, which I love that moment where Rey calls for the lightsaber and it comes to her. Like I really love that moment. You can even give her that moment. She gets to the edge of the cliff, and then like he's got her beat, and like he does, and then all of a sudden you just hear a lightsaber boom ignite, and Kylo turns around and it's Luke. Like the theater would have lost their freaking minds.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then you let Rey have this cool moment with, you see like there's clearly some real and powerful Force connection with the saber going to her, and I again would make her Han and Leia's daughter. But then you don't keep going, which is what kind of begins to cause the issues of the Mary Sue conversation. You then give it to Luke, and you let her have those real bigger moments and fighting, like in the next movie and the next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think people wanted, including, I do reference our brother a lot. He definitely...
He was one. He was so pissed when he left The Last Jedi.
Yes. I think, he's like, it's done. It's done for me. It's all done, in that category for sure. But I think like him and a lot of people, they really just, they wanted to see Luke. Obviously, he wasn't going to be like as young as he was, but see like an awesome, like in the flesh... Mm-hmm. Battle scene, like him really do his thing as a fully trained Jedi.
Well, just look at the reaction that people gave to the Mandalorian when they had that moment. And I actually was not one that had that moment, because I'm like a CGI snob. So as soon as they revealed him and they revealed the face, I was like, ooh. I was like, no. And so, but again, everyone freaked out. Everyone was hyped. Imagine that, but happening in The Force Awakens instead. But the other big thing, too, going back to this whole we didn't have a plan, is that they were so stupid. Because imagine you have this trilogy all meant to close out, right, the Skywalker saga. It's amazing how they call it the Skywalker saga, even though the last three films really have nothing to do with the Skywalkers. They can try and argue, well, she calls herself Rey Skywalker at the end. It's like, come on, just stop. But what they've done is they put themselves in a hole, because if they had done it right and had kept those characters around, building up the new characters, ending in a fantastical way, however you want to end it, then what you do is you say, okay, boom, at the end of that last movie, you have reveal, the next title, and it's a new trilogy, and it's featuring the new characters that you've just now spent 3 films developing, getting people attached to, caring about. And then you can leave the Skywalker saga behind because you've done an actual correct completion. And now also, guess what? Financially, you have yourself continued revenue. But they didn't do that because obviously they had no plan, and Kathleen Kennedy is incompetent as far as a creative is concerned.
Okay, that within that 2 minutes of what you just said, that was a way better plan.
Because Because it was a plan. It was an actual plan. Yeah. They could have done anything. As long as they had a plan, it would have been.
It was a plan 1, 2. It was a good plan.
Yeah, it is. As Justin had said, it just will always, now as you look back, be a very big missed opportunity that we could never get. I mean, literally could never get back because one of the 3 is dead. So it is what it is.
And you're not going to have that lightning in a bottle again. Yeah. I mean, the next Star Wars film they put out, if anyone thinks it's going to be like Force Awakens and get $2 billion, you're kidding yourself. It's just...
They would have to have more and more Mandalorians coming down the pipe that truly are good and well written to begin to excite people. They'd have to build back up to that again. And they're never going to build to that hype because there had been such that gap and it was such a beloved trilogy. Yeah. But even to get really pumped, I mean, that was the thing. By the time The Last Jedi, the way it ended, I was one that I always listened to like Star Wars theory and things like that and like to theorize, but like it killed your ability to theorize. Like, I mean, the way that movie ends, I literally went for like a year and a half. I didn't even listen to Star Wars YouTube because it had killed my ability to really theorize on it. So, which was fun. I mean, it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And also, even if they did make 1,000 Mandalorians, they have turned off too many fans.
Yes.
They've turned off way too many. I mean, I've seen a lot of people, just in this chat alone who've just said, I'm over it. I'm done with it. Star Wars is dead to me. And it's so sad to hear that. And at the very least, we have some pretty good fan films being made. I know that there's like several of the last few years that have been made that have been just awesome and very well done. But it's unfortunate because I don't think they realize, and obviously they don't care about how many fans they've lost because of the decisions they made.
Well, yes. And it's like, I love The Mandalorian. Like I am a Grogu, Baby Yoda. I mean, mega fan. I love the child, but I really did love.
I mean, she literally prays that when she gets to heaven,
on the new Earth, I believe
there will be a Baby Yoda just for her.
God is going to give me that he's got, because in my thinking here, he designed the person who came up with the child in their mind, so he can just make it happen for me.
Some people stay with the question, do dogs go to heaven? And for you, is there going to be Grogu in heaven?
Exactly.
Grogu's definitely making it to heaven. But anyways, I was a huge Mandalorian fan. Loved it. Natalie even.
I loved it.
You were bawling at the end of Mando season 2. It was ugly tears.
I released a lot of emotion.
It was ugly tears. And they had won. So even our brother, who was done with Star Wars after The Last Jedi, he admitted that his eyes got a little dusty when he saw the green saber. I mean, he had to admit that. Mm-hmm. And they build up all this goodwill, and then when they fired Gina Carano, that's when it was like, I've always, even though there were things I knew by the time The Rise of Skywalker came out, I didn't really like The Last Jedi, but
took you a while to get there.
Well, I mean, I was, how sometimes you leave a theater and you're hype.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes time to reflect, and you're like, no, this isn't very good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I was with The Last Jedi too. I didn't go out of The Last Jedi like with immediate like hatred, but it was that feeling of, I don't know what I just watched. I was like, I was very confused. I was like, I feel like I have to like it because it's Star Wars, but it's also like, but something's not quite right here. And it wasn't until I started to really think about these things. And the thing that broke me when I really started to think about it was the hyperspace ram. Like that to me was like, I was so caught up on that because I'm like, visually it looked beautiful. Like kudos to the art direction on that film. Because here's the other thing too, is that, obviously I am more than willing to criticize films like The Last Jedi, but a lot of the design was pretty well done. A lot of the visual, like a lot of those technical elements were there. And so I give kudos to those crew members who had no play in the story at all or the direction or anything like that. But that moment was so beautiful. And yet, if you think about it, it totally destroys every other Star Wars movie. Because if we live in a world where you can hyperspace ram somebody, there is nothing to stop any empire anywhere from putting a droid in a ship, having it go hyperspeed and literally destroying planets. And also, too, Death Star first movie. Oh, guess what? That's not a big deal anymore because all we need to do is just put one person or some droid inside of a X-Wing and have it go hyperspace, and boom, everything gets taken away because of that choice.
Yeah, it was bad. But anyways, so I was even one who sat around and like criticized Star Wars. Literally, where they broke my Star Wars spirit was the day they fired Gina Carano. And I can say this.
And it was funny. It's not funny, but I remember you were kind of in denial because
I was in denial. I was no, they're not this stupid.
We'd had a live stream that night that I guess that kind of got put on Twitter and because then I went to like news sources and it was like, okay, this is legit. So I told you and you were like, well, it's not official yet. Disney, and I'm like, it seems pretty official. Seems legit.
Yeah, it broke me. And it's like I'm the type person, I may watch the original Star Wars trilogy a minimum of 3 times a year. Maybe it's quarterly even. I watched it. I love the original trilogy. But even though I'm separating it in my mind from George's stuff from Disney, they burned me so bad. I've watched nothing Star Wars this entire year since they made that move. Like my spirit is not mended or healed from what they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel the same way. I think a lot of people now, it's kind of like the whole Game of Thrones season 8, where now I'm at the point where I own season 1 and 2 and I love season 1 and 2, but I stare at them on my shelf and I'm like, I'm probably never going to watch you again because I know what you lead to. And it's just like with this, it's like I've seen the sequel trilogy and I know what it means now. And I know a lot of people have been able to get past this by, embracing headcanon, by saying, okay, the sequel trilogy is not canon. I choose to accept the EU novels and the original trilogy and the prequels. Those are my canon. And again, I think that works for some people. But for me, it's like, I can't get those other ideas and I can't get those other story elements out of my head. And it definitely sours it to a point. And I think the whole Gina Carano, I was already soured before the Gina Carano thing. That thing, I was like, oh, great. Now the Mandalorian has now been soured for me. Like, because I wasn't the biggest fan of it. Like, to me, it was like they would have 3 awesome episodes a season. And then the others would be like, okay. And then there's a couple episodes I wasn't a really, big fan of. But it was at least something that I was like willing to watch and go through and see what the story was going to be like. But once the whole Gina Carano thing went down, I'm like, no, if this is the kind of way, if this is the way you're going to treat somebody who is doing nothing more than speaking truth, not going after anybody, not attacking anybody, like you've had other members of your team go after directly people attacking them. All she's doing is reposting stuff. And it's stuff that just happens to be true. Like, the worst thing she did was defend freedom. That's the worst thing that she did was defend freedom. Where I could point out, what's his name? The lead role of The Mandalorian. I forget his name.
Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, Pedro Pascal, who literally called entire groups of people Yahtzees. Like, and even worse things, too. It's just, it boggles my mind.
But that's okay, because it fits the narrative. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, when you can see it, you can't unsee it. I get some people, they don't see it, maybe good, well-meaning people, but yeah, it's like you see what was going on there, what they were saying, the big message to all the people that think like her.
Yeah, like
that's
basically,
what they think of us.
Basically, you're not welcome at this table anymore. Like, go away. And they need to understand that there are ramifications to that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that feel and think the same way that she does.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Natalie, do you want to take this one?
Rick, hello and thank you. Greetings and salutations. Star Wars 10. The Force is was it resurrected?
Resuscitated.
Resuscitated. Okay.
Yeah.
I promise I know how to read, guys.
We have the computer kind of further away too. But thank you, Rick. And hello.
Thank you very much.
Hello to Nicole. Thank you very much, Rick. Yeah, it's I don't know. We'll see. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The only thing that it would be hard for me to turn off is my devotion to Grogu. So it's like I've said, I feel like someone who's going through a divorce, like I'm only in it for the child. Like that's it.
So basically, if they decide to go kind of a, I guess you can say like a Guardians of the Galaxy, where at the very end you have Baby Groot, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's Baby Groot, and then later on it becomes a teenager. So if Grogu like grows up and becomes like a teenager, you're gonna be like, okay, no, I'm done. This is.
My devotion may run good enough for Grogu that I'm willing to go through the teenage years with him too. I don't know. But I'm saying,
I mean, this is serious. This is like he will always be her baby level. You know what I'm saying? As a parent,
I'm saying that like if he for some reason is not in season 3 of The Mandalorian, I have no interest. Like. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've seen Stranger Things or Stranger Things season 3, but when
we make it known we love.
Yeah. Oh, we're
I feel like we say
fans.
it to every guest we've on. We're like, have you seen Stranger Things?
Yeah. Have you seen it? Why haven't you seen it?
Love Stranger Things. Yes, it's so good.
Yeah, it's so
good. I've been trying to get Drunk to watch it, and
Drunk's not seen it?
No.
You know what? It shocks me is how many people, especially within this community, I just kind of, I don't know. It kind of seems like that would be in their wheelhouse, and they've not seen it.
There's one thing though that it helps to explain it. It's on Netflix.
Yeah,
and Netflix has caused a lot of issues with a lot of people, and I totally understand why people would choose not to have Netflix because of the nonsense they've done.
I mean,
that's true.
I literally sent him a super chat and said, "This is so you can go watch. You can get a Netflix account for a month." But, I mean, I'm pushing it hard. But anyways, I've got a few people. But what I was getting at is when Alexa, it's Alexa or Alexis, the Russian that we grow to love in season 3. Yeah,
sweet Alexi.
Oh yeah. My wife and I too. We're like, oh.
I got so attached to him over those couple episodes.
Well, when he says at Murray's house, he says, what is he like? Cherry slushies or strawberry?
He likes cherry slushies.
Yeah, he says no cherry, no deal. And that's how I feel about Grogu. No Grogu, no deal. I'm out. That's it. I literally hear him say no cherry, no deal. Anytime I think of people being like, oh yeah, the Mandalorian will be fine without the child. No, it won't be. Not for the vast majority of women audience viewers. No, like that's what we're here for.
I mean, I'll admit, he's a huge draw for me.
And here's the thing too, which is interesting. Think about the revenue for and from that show.
Yeah,
I guarantee you most of it came from outside sales of dolls and of anything that was Baby Yoda, anything that was Grogu, and I bet a lot of it came from people who had never seen a single episode of the show.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's so cute, it goes beyond the show.
I mean, he's that freaking cute.
His cuteness transcends.
It's a transcendent cuteness. He'll just show up in random movies now. It's like, hey, wait, this Baby Yoda.
That would be pretty great.
Oh, man, this movie sucks. There's Baby Yoda. We're saved.
Any modern film that takes place in modern times, you could have a child character who's like going to bed and they're just holding on to hugging their Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
He becomes like the Stan Lee of film, but he's now like he shows up randomly in every movie.
Instead of the Mickeys, you know how like you find Mickeys in all the different things, but they should change it to as, find Grogu in all of these different places.
I absolutely think that should happen.
I mean, it could become worldwide. Like, he's an icon,
I mean, he is. He's a global phenomenon.
It is true. Like, even people who don't like The Mandalorian, even they're like, yeah, I understand Grogu is pretty popular. I do know people, though, who hate Grogu, who cannot stand Grogu.
Oh, we have Sean. Sean is in our chat sometimes, and he likes to say punt the runt. And I'm like, get out of here with that evil.
Sounds like Ryan from RK Outpost, because he also could not stand Baby Yoda.
Oh my gosh!
Oh yeah!
Ryan.
Oh yeah!
Ryan.
One of his favorite scenes in the entire show was when the stormtroopers are punching Baby Yoda.
Oh no! My God.
That was the only thing he liked about it.
This is war now.
I watched that scene and I said, they have to die.
She literally said that. She said they've got to die.
How dare you?
That's how we feel. That's how protective we are. We're like, dead. Clipped.
I was on the ground on accident when they were mishandling him. A tear. I thought, if he cries, I'm just
It's like, can Grogu cry? I don't know.
Yeah, but we are. Well, I'm a diehard Grogu fan, so we'll see.
Yeah,
but
even with all my issues, like with some of the episodes, like I have a lot of people on my channel who just can't stand anything Disney Star Wars, which I totally understand and respect. And there's a lot of people also who don't want and like Baby Yoda. And their reason makes sense. It's like, to them, Baby Yoda is just a way for them to sell merchandise. And I'm like, I totally admit that. I totally agree with you. Still cute.
Yeah.
Still adorable.
Doesn't change it. Well, and it was such a genius way to market, because if you think about it, I've said this before, with Star Wars, they have to be able to get people to buy merchandise.
Yeah.
Because it's set in a galaxy far, far away. So you can't have a Coca-Cola in the shot that gets them a few million, or they can't advertise the way other movies
like
can.
Eggos on Stranger Things.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, literally, when Stranger Things, the months that Stranger Things is out, Eggo sales go up. I mean, that's what it does for them.
And we're just talking about Eggos here. I mean, that's
in fact,
not that they're not good.
In fact, tying the two together, I have said that the Mandalorian kind of copies Stranger Things, because Stranger Things has this child, 11, that has these special abilities, and that is an orphan that gets taken up by the male protective character.
Oh my gosh!
In the
just
movie,
keeps going.
And it's like the Mandalorian copied that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think too, because I think a lot of the inspiration, Jon Favreau said, there's this, it's this Japanese series, and it's called Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yes.
And I just watched the first one recently, and apparently a lot of the inspiration came from that, because it features this samurai warrior who is pushing around his little 1-year-old son in a little pram. And so essentially imagine that as a futuristic setting, and you have Mandalorian with the futuristic weaponry pram. And then you have, of course, the portable floating pram instead. So,
which everyone wants. Every parent wants a floating pram.
Yes. It's like, can we make that, please? That'd be great.
It is definitely sweet. But yeah, I've got several people, actually. I'm trying to my mind switching back to Stranger Things. I'm trying to get to watch Stranger Things, because I told Drunk this. I said, you like the original trilogy of Star Wars, you will like Stranger Things. It just seems to go together. Like the OT fans, we harass
people. We basically harass people.
We do. We basically bully them into watching Stranger Things.
What is a good? I think if anyone likes 80s, like 80s movies, coming of age stories in general, like if you like E.T., Goonies, anything like that, you're gonna love this show.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Well, it's kind of got something for everybody too, I think.
And it goes back. I told you I didn't have any big topics today, and we would just kind of see where it went. So it went this way, and it's been a great chat on that. But
let it flow.
I'd said that we would talk about, which goes into Stranger Things or connects with Stranger Things, because I think one of the reasons Stranger Things did so well, or has done so well, is because it was one of the first really original things in a long time. That like was really cool, and it draws from a lot of those movies, like you said, but it's still very much its own thing. It's not just another Star Wars movie, another Marvel movie.
Yes.
Yeah, it just felt so like fresh, is the way I always put it. Like when I like, wow, this is different and refreshing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's taking a genre. And I think that's always, it's fine to do that. I mean, it would be like if someone made a modern day samurai movie, or if someone made a modern day Western, and people do that. Like if you're using a genre, there's nothing wrong with that. But as long as it's original story, that's what we're craving. That's what we want. And Stranger Things absolutely does that, because even though it is very, you could say formulaic, because it's fitting within this 80s genre, it is also a very original story, original characters, not based on these other previous materials, not a remake, reboot, etc., which we're seeing so much of these days. And that is, I think, another reason as to why people have been so drawn to it, because it gives them that 80s nostalgia, but also gives them a new story. And you have to have both of those components there.
Definitely. That
well said.
Stranger Things, and then also our other obsession with A Quiet Place, because A Quiet Place, yet again, it takes a genre, but it's a totally new take, a new story, and new characters. And I think Hollywood needs to pay attention to that. That sometimes intimate
that originality,
these intimate, well-written stories.
Not that they're not drawing inspiration from things, certainly, but it feels like its own thing in both cases.
100%.
Yeah, and a lot of it's money. Well. A lot of it's money too, though, because the first A Quiet Place cost $17 million production budget, which compared to a lot of other films is very low budget in comparison, and it did very well. This new one, I think they bumped it up to $61 million, but even that is still a lot. I mean, Cruella de Vil, the film that no one asked for, Cruella, live action Cruella, no one asked for this movie, cost well over $100 million to make it.
I've heard up to $200 million.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like when you're taking marketing, especially, you're getting very close to 200 million, especially with anything with marketing. And this film, that movie is in the red, like severely in the red, where A Quiet Place just this past weekend officially went into the black. And also was maybe the last 2 weeks it's been in the black, but also was the first film in America to reach $100 million domestically since the pandemic started. So it also made a record in that way. So.
Definitely. Well, and what's interesting, even with the Cruella, because Natalie's now seen it too. I took my niece to see it. And then she wanted to go see it. She wanted to go, to see it. She wanted to see it. Is to me that movie succeeds. I told her this. It succeeds when it's its own thing and it's fully divorced really from 101 Dalmatians. Mm-hmm. And then when they try to squeeze it in as a prequel, it doesn't work because this Cruella would never be that Cruella.
Because if you just go in, like somebody said earlier this week, talking about Army of the Dead, and even in a movie like Cruella, you can kind of turn your brain off and just have fun. In and of itself, it's a fun movie. You know, it's fun. I love some of the visuals in it, especially as a female.
It's very visually stunning for females with all the high fashion and things like that.
I mean, is it A Quiet Place too? No. You know,
but the point I was going to make is I heard someone say almost if they had it made at Cruella, the story actually would have been much more compelling.
Yeah.
Because what works so much is the originalness that's in it.
Right.
It's just when they try to make it the prequel, it's like who asked?
I'm kind of wondering because I haven't seen it and I don't really have plans to see it, but obviously the origin scene of her hatred of Dalmatians is shown in this film, and I guess spoiler warning for those that haven't seen it or haven't seen this clip, but basically poorly done CGI Dalmatians push her mother off a cliff.
Oh, it's bad.
That scene did bother me a little bit.
Is that at the beginning of the movie?
It's the very beginning. Yeah. That scene was bad.
So it seems to me like if you took that first scene out, the rest of the film is fine?
Yes, except when they're trying to bring Anita. And when they're trying to force 101 Dalmatians on you, you're like, nah, like none of these people, Horace, Jasper, Cruella, none of them have it in them to skin dogs alive.
Because they're not truly like bad people. Or that's the way they're presented in Cruella.
So that's why it's like they could have made like a fun fashion movie, I guess geared towards more girls, because I mean that's who likes fashion for the most part. Yeah. But it's those 101 Dalmatian things that even because I was a big 101 Dalmatian fan, so I was bugged by some of that. That's the way I would word that. And I told Natalie it would even be fine if they are like, this is a Elseworld story, the way DC will do, like in another world, possibly, but because it's not a prequel. There's no way.
I'll just say I was surprised. To me, and I don't mean to make any males that really enjoy this movie feel. No, I really don't. That's what I'm trying to say here. But it's like a guy that I know at my age, Turner Randolph. I'm going to go and say his name. He's in the chat sometimes. He's good with himself. He doesn't mind, but he inboxed me. It surprised me. He said, "I love that movie."
Oh, because he's like a man's man. That's why she's surprised.
Okay.
Like beard, out in the woods all
rides a motorcycle.
Lumberjack,
It just couldn't be funny, But I don't know where I was going. I guess I just figured it would be more like. Probably the average man's not going to be attracted to Cruella, and I totally get that.
But there is some heist elements that would appeal to men.
Yeah.
It's just, again, the way I got onto that is I think what that person said, actually, it rung true with me. But then maybe people don't come in because you don't have the Cruella name. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the originality within the movie is what works.
Mm-hmm. Imagine if they had not named it Cruella, and imagine if they had given it some other name, no connection at all with 101 Dalmatians, and that it's not until you actually see the movie that you realize, oh, this is actually an origin story. Like, I think that probably, as you said, would have shown a lot more of those original ideas that were in the film, but also that's how you help build interest, because you may not make the most money. Imagine if they had instead made like a $20 to $30 million low budget movie focused just on the story, on maybe on these fashion elements, etc. And it's not until the very end that you realize, oh, this is an origin story here. That would have been then people saying, y'all gotta see this. It's amazing. The twist is great. This, da, 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 da. That would have brought people in. But when you're just like, hey, everybody, this is Cruella. Learn the origin story of why she decides that she wants to not just kill dogs, but skin them.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. Her mom got pushed off a cliff by CGI Dalmatians. Wait, that's it? Oh, okay, never mind.
Man, those CGI Dalmatians, they bought, well, all the dogs are CGI, and it's like,
she's holding a dog. She's holding a dog, and I was like, that's a CGI dog. If you're holding it, that's the perfect time to have a real dog.
Right.
It's just like, I mean, so are dogs just not allowed on sets at all anymore? That's what it seems like. Let's see. Nicole's in here. I'll have to ask Nicole, because Nicole's been reading 101 Dalmatians, the book, so I'll have to ask her thoughts later. But
I think she was saying earlier, it's kind of will be hard for, I don't want to misquote her, but for anything to be totally accurate to the book, I guess is what she's trying to say.
Yeah. But anyways.
But no, I think that getting back to that original point though about originality, I think that what you are seeing is that it is typically from these lower budget films that you're finding the much more original stories. And a lot of that, I think, comes from the fact when you don't have as much money, it means that you have to be a lot more frugal. It means that you have to actually care about things that are going to bring people into a story. And I think that's the biggest issue right now with Disney, is that every film they make, every single one, is over $100 million production budget. And what you find from that is that they cheap out usually on directors, and they'll cheap out on writers even too, because all their money is going into the production design, going into the CGI effects and all that stuff, and they're losing the story because they're making these corporate stories instead, which is why Phase 4 of the MCU, I think, is just going to be a total train wreck.
It's kind of like they're building these model houses that look really pretty, but inside they're shallow and they don't have any, or hollow.
It's like Arrested Development, kind of. It's just like they're living in the model home.
Yeah. It's another great show, by the way. But yes, another quote I use from that all the time is when he said the dad's talking about how he loves this ice cream sandwich, and the mom says, "Why don't you marry that ice cream sandwich?"
So we'll just say that to each other we're like, well, why don't you marry that water bottle? Just like you was.
The one that my wife and I always do, whenever anything, like if one of us says something that is like maybe like taken the wrong way, it makes us sad, we just like immediately put the head down.
That show just has, I mean, it was the first like 2 seasons particularly, but even the 3, I thought of the when it was on Fox, that's some of the best comedy in a long time. I mean, it's just, that was amazing comedy. Yeah. But what I was going to say, because
it's like, okay, it's just like everybody worked.
Oh, like, every character,
Because it was original and it was thought out.
Yes.
What a concept.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, and what I was going to say about going back to everything, everything goes back to Stranger Things with us. Back to that, in season 1, because they didn't have the biggest budget from Netflix at that point in time.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't really even see the Demogorgon, like get a really clean shot of it for quite a while, which is kind of the Jaws effect. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not going to show you this, and it's going to build anticipation and the creepy factor of this what they're dealing with. And I think it came from the fact they didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah. No, and it's one of those things where horror especially does so much better when they don't have a lot of money, because it means that they have to rely on that Jaws effect, as you said, kind of that anticipation, because it's, who would have thought horror does well when you build suspense? And what's the best way to build suspense? Don't show the monster right away and let the mind wander and let the mind try and figure out exactly what's going on. And and I think that might also be a reason why having a much lower budget movie, series, etc. would lead to, in general, better storytelling, because they would have to be able to use what they have at their disposal.
And get creative.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and in that show, I mean, even like Mrs. Wheeler, like it's like they've truly, and I mean, she's kind of a disaster, but she's a lovable disaster.
we're just fully going straight.
But my point is they really took the time to flesh out all the characters. Like everyone is well written. Like there's not bad characters.
It's like you care about almost everyone, and it's a fairly large ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll just be. I know we're closing and everything. I want to keep you, but something I really want. Okay, I'm really wanting Mrs. Wheeler in the next season. It's time for her to know what's been going on. Like it's time to bring Mrs. Wheeler in on it. And would it not be a hysterical moment if, like, out of nowhere, Mr. Wheeler like saves the day in a situation, like knocks one in the head, or just out of nowhere? Like everyone would laugh.
That would be amazing.
Like if you give him this epic moment and like make Dustin say a smart aleck comment back or something, it would just be so funny.
And I think that it would actually be, as you said, it would kind of be time for that character, especially because I'm trying to think back. He's because I'm terrible with characters sometimes. He's like the dad that's just like the standard like 1980s dad who's just like chilling. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like not connected at all. Like
Imagine like he gets like a golf club out or something, and he just like gets a good swing, and then you have Dustin, who would be the perfect person for it, and then he just like says like some like curse word, and like normally he would be very flustered by that because of propriety, but instead he would have that moment of like, thanks.
I could even see in him like
yes, son, that's how it's done.
I could even see him because they make him, they've let us know he voted for Reagan. They make him kind of this conservative figure. Even if he took like a flagpole, like stabbed it through the brain.
Now you're really dreaming. I like it.
This is America. Well, they are bringing it seems like they're bringing the Russian element, continuing on in the Russian element, so that could actually totally work, because, Cold War and everything, like, this is how we do it in America.
It'd be great. But I want to say, Dax, I'm so glad you made it. I know Dax has gone through a tough time with flooding.
Oh, goodness.
In fact, I donated. I know he still has his GoFundMe thing, but anyone that can help, he lost like everything on the inside of his house through flooding. So,
oh my goodness.
Very good to see you here. But yeah, but anyways, I don't want to keep you any longer, but thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it has.
Yes, I don't know how you found us, but I was so glad you did, and we've been able to connect through Twitter, because I've obviously seen you. I first found you on Friday Night Tights, and then went to your I want to say station, like your channel.
Station, yeah.
It's station.
But it was very similar. It was for me. It's Twitter. I mean, it's as terrible as Twitter is. It does help to stay in contact with people and also to make connections. And so it was one of those things where your videos were shared around, and I was just like, oh, let's check this. And I was like, it was one of those things where it was very refreshing, because I love my friends and I love the communities that I'm connected with, but it's also nice to have people who are, talking about movies and are not just like negative all the time.
Yes.
So it's refreshing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, what we always
what's
tell.
Funny is sometimes like I'll feel like we're like
she's like, Michelle, we're being too negative.
We're just negative all the time, and then what's funny, like that's been my insecurity, and then the overwhelming comment like, you guys are just so positive, and I'm like, well, I guess we don't like it, maybe in my head, but we don't come across that way.
Yeah, because I try.
Thank goodness.
Well, and I mean, like you said, even with our movie reviews, what we tell our audience is we're always going to be honest, and if that's Army of the Dead and I was looking at her, just be like, that was bad, that was really bad, it was really bad.
Like she literally just started saying bad like while we were watching. I'm like, Michelle, calm.
I was like, it sucked. like I will be honest with you, if I hated it, like I don't hate things
it's just
that often.
We're probably gonna just laugh about it, like it's not gonna be like, this movie ruined my life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and people are saying in the chat, like it's because you're honest. It doesn't look like or feel like you're putting on a facade. It's just you are being honest with your thoughts about the movies, whether they are positive or negative. And that's something that is very refreshing to see, because you have, especially like, one, you have the overly negative channels, but then you also have the channels that are very posh, like they're all crisp and clean, and it's like, I'm the professional critic and I'm gonna give this fully detailed thing. People like just having regular everyday people talking about movies, because that's what we do. I mean, I go back to one of my fondest memories of going to a theater is spending that 30 minutes to 2 hours in the parking lot after, just talking about the film, and people like to be a part of that.
Definitely. Yes, and I know I appreciate you. I appreciate your channel, and that you're open about your faith. And I think sometimes we just have to, people are, whether it's Christianity or not, they're open with their faith, whether that's political or whatever, all the time. Mm-hmm. So it's nice for Christians to also voice their faith.
It's like we have to forget it's not a crime.
Yeah.
It's just something that
exactly.
Not yet.
True.
Not in our country, at least. In some other countries, maybe, but
yes. Yeah, so that is refreshing, but let me actually thank you, Mr. Roy, for the $5 super sticker.
He's one of my, I call them my chosen of Valhalla. He's one of my high-level Patreon supporters. So, Mr. Roy, thank you very much, man, for coming by and showing support.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's
glad
awesome.
you're here.
Yeah, well, again, thank you so much for coming on, and everyone. I know our Marcos has had his channel. I see it actually right here.
If for some reason you're not subscribed to Odin, do yourself a favor and go subscribe.
Especially if you're into Japanese cinema. I have been probably bombarding people, because I've been doing, like, all of my reviews for the past week and a half or so have all been from 1950s to 1980s Japanese cinema. And it'll be interesting to see what people think about it. Oh. Did I freeze? Did I freeze, or did y'all freeze? Am I frozen? Oh no! Oh no! Am I seen on screen? Can y'all still? I'm. Well, hello everybody. I don't know how that thing worked, but welcome to the channel that I don't own. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It's very important that you do so. Thank y'all for being here. Oh man, I've never been in this situation before. It's almost like those chair streams that happen every now and then, but how's it going, everybody? I don't know what to do about this. I assume they can enter back into the studio since they created it. Nothing much. Yeah, good time. Her internet. Oh no, their internet died. That's terrible. Well, thank y'all very much for being here. As you can tell, I am not Force of Light Entertainment. Yeah, this has never happened to me before. StreamYard is a funny thing. Yeah, it's all on me now, I suppose. Make sure that if you are not subscribed, or if you're not hit the like button, you make sure to do so. And obviously show all the love and the support that you possibly can to them. And they are a great duo. And as I said, I honestly do love the reviews that they do. I love the content they put out, because they are just honest. They're honest. They're open. They don't come across in any way as putting on anything. And that was one of the biggest reasons probably why I was drawn to the channel, was because everything was just so authentic. And it's so rare nowadays, because most of the movie review channels that I watch, not to say that they're not authentic, tend to be very overproduced and tend to be very like jump cuts and just pristine. And obviously there's people who like those kinds of reviews and like those kinds of videos, but I also am a big fan because I do this myself. It's just the casual conversation, talking things through, talking things over. And it's always great, too, to have multiple people on a channel being able to have back and forth conversation. Something where I hope and pray one day that some of my friends from New Orleans can come up so that way they can join me as well. Okay. Force of Flight Entertainment in the chat says they're trying to get back. And since I do not own the stream, I cannot highlight their comment, but I will point it out nonetheless. So they are trying to get back into the show to bid farewell and to bid the adieus. This would be the perfect time, though, to smash the like button. Check out the links to find out ways that you can support their channel and their work. Watch a bunch of their videos as well. Andrew Hoyle, I see you in the chat. He says, and so we enter the second age of Odin. Fix your mic. What's wrong with my mic, Kingslayer? What's wrong with my mic? What did I do with my mic? Is it because my Han dice aren't there? You're back! Oh my goodness!
StreamYard literally kicked me out. I've never had this happen ever before. I had to fully shut down my computer and restart it. And it kept saying it was like, can't get to it because my internet was working. So I knew it wasn't my internet.
That's so weird.
But man, you handled that like a pro. You
I was just like, deer in headlights. I don't know what to say.
Thank you. Mad respect to you for that. You just carried it.
Odin just became epic in my mind.
So my anxiety level started popping up. I'm like, oh, let me try saying something here.
Oh my gosh, I might just freeze or tell a really inappropriate joke. One of the two.
She probably would first freeze, then tell an inappropriate joke. But anyways, well, thank you so much for filling in and being
anytime, y'all. Anytime. Just let me know.
Well, but seriously, yeah, I know I've taken you now well past the time I told you, but thank you so much for coming on the show. Awesome having you. Definitely love to have you back. And next time, we hopefully won't leave you.
We'll have these technical difficulties.
We won't leave you to carry the show by yourself.
Well, thank y'all for having me on. It has been a lot of fun. And as I was saying while I was trying to vamp, please make sure everyone that y'all smash that like button.
Yes, thank you so much. And everyone in the chat, thank you for joining us today. And definitely go subscribe to Odin if you have not yet. And check him out on Friday Night Tights, which is on Nerdrotic's channel. They have some fun, entertaining shows, and Odin eats pizza every Friday.
I do, and I say a lot of prayers, and I try to get words in when I can. And yes, it's not for the faint of heart, though. Don't bring your kids to the show. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, I understand. But thank you, everyone in the chat. Enjoyed it. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to be a force of light. All right, bye, guys.